I've been playing some Dark Souls item randomizer runs recently, and I managed to get this run that you're about to see in this video. But instead of just uploading it as it is, I thought it might be interesting if I added some commentary with the thought process that's happening in my head with all the decisions that you have to make in a randomizer run. Because this ended up being a relatively good run, despite some some mistakes that I will definitely point out when they happen. And it starts in character creation, not the mistakes, but the decisions start in character creation. First, just looking through the classes, seeing if there's any interesting weapons available. But nothing really stands out here. And then we're also going to look at the spells, but these are also not very interesting. So we'll just pick the default, which is Hunter. It's basically a default choice for item randomizer, because despite the classes all starting with random equipment, the Hunter always starts with a bow as well as 30 arrows. Now we don't know which bow it is, but I guess I could know if I looked at the character creation screen more closely, because it does have the icon. But it doesn't really matter which bow it is, just having a bow, and it's even a guarantee to be a bow that we can use too. But just having a bow and also a stack of 30 arrows is just really useful. Because this is not a glitchless run, so we will be using a number of glitches throughout this run. And the arrow specifically, we are on the Prepare to Die edition version of the game. I guess in remastered you can also use the quantities. Although the most powerful thing you can do with quantities in DSR typically just uses the default 99, so you wouldn't need the 30 arrows for that. But in Prepare to Die edition, we will definitely appreciate having a stack of 30 that we can just look at the quantity of, that we can use for quantity storage. And also the bow is one half of what we need for move swap. The other half being a thrusting weapon, and then preferably also a weapon that can deal good damage when move swapped. So there's just a lot of reasons to go for Hunter. I will occasionally switch it up though, but in this seed, nothing really struck me as interesting enough to not go Hunter. And the weapon that this Hunter starts with actually, in this case, is the Uchigatana, which is not a bad weapon. It's not a great weapon either. But one interesting thing about this weapon, as you maybe saw in this fight, is that it has bleed. And that's mostly just a nice bonus. It's not gonna be very relevant very often, but it is notably relevant for Stray Demon, and I tend to like killing Stray Demon early. I'm not sure if I should. I'll talk about that more later. But I tend to like killing Stray Demon early, and if you don't have good damage, he just has way too much health to do that. That's gonna be really slow. But he's weak to bleed, so having a decent weapon with bleed is gonna help a lot. I think in this run it's not gonna end up mattering, but it is like a slight consideration to make when looking at the items. I just talked to Petrus there and then left because I just don't like standing around to wait for his next dialogue to pop up. And I also prefer having potential souls from having ran through the graveyard already when you open his merchant menu, because Petrus likes to be way too expensive. So like even if he has good stuff, we may not even be able to afford it if we don't have the souls. So then we'd have to go run through the graveyard anyway and then go back to Petrus anyway. So I just like doing things in this order. And if it doesn't matter, it ends up like being almost the same time anyway, because you do get to essentially skip that bit of waiting time for his dialogue to pop up. Here in the graveyard, you do usually want to go and pick up all of these items. Now, random items on the ground are not very likely to be good, except this one actually is. That's Boss Soul. We are playing with the transposed setting, So this actually had a chance to be, I believe, one of the great swords of Artorias. But instead, the randomizer decided it would be a regular soul. And that's actually 16k consumable that we can just dupe. Because on Prepare to Die edition, we can use confirmation box duping to use the boss soul without consuming it. And that's gonna be very, very helpful. But anyway, let's see what Petrus has for us. We do still have to wait for this part of the dialogue to appear. But unfortunately, we can't run by him twice. So we'll just have to take that wait. And here's a weaponsmith box and also a Black Knight halberd. Except now I can't afford it anymore because I just bought a weaponsmith box. So we'll just have to exit this menu and pop a soul. And I was not paying attention to my pickups apparently because this soul was on my hotbar. And then I mess up the menuing here and buy a random piece of armor because normally Petrus does not open his menu on the weapons section. So we just pop the Soul of Sif, or dupe the Soul of Sif, then get the Black Knight halberd, and we're also gonna buy this shield to empty out the weapons tab so we can prompt swap into it, from the right preferably. There we go. And that allowed me to buy a non-existent weapon, which will maybe be useful later. Here we got another good pickup, the Soul of Ornstein. It's actually less good than the Soul of Sif when consumed, but I'm going to forget about that, I believe, and just use the Soul of Ornstein instead. So we are pretty well set on the souls, at least in the early game. And we've got a pretty solid start. The only thing we're really missing is an end game. No, actually we just picked up the Black Knight halberd. So if we can just find some Twinkling Titanite, we are set for the end game already. But right now we're just getting wrecked by a rat. There's no way this item is worth it if you're gonna spend this much time on the rat. Like random items on the ground are already somewhat questionable because it's usually only one item and there's a lot of garbage that can be in there. Especially when we already have a weapon that I'd be happy taking to the end game. That's a great scythe there, by the way. That is also not a bad weapon. If we didn't already have a Black Knight halberd, I would consider using it just because it's a cool weapon. Because but it's not that good. And I do already have the Uchigatana, which I may prefer in this case. Getting to the Undead Merchant, we find Dragon Scales and a Dragon King Great Axe, Great Sword, Great Axe, and also a Crystal Halberd. I actually think about the Crystal Halberd for a second, but then realize I already have a Black Knight Halberd, and I have upgrade materials for neither of them. So like maybe I should buy the Crystal Halberd just in case I find chunks before I find Twinkling Titanite. That's probably a mistake ignoring it here. But I decided not to get it. And we're gonna be opening this guy's menu a few times. First of all, I just bought 999 arrows. So the initial 30 quantity isn't gonna matter because I have a quantity of 999 now that I'm just going to use here. First though, yeah, use a non-quantity bought, some non-quantity bought stuff. I believe, yeah, get the Dragon King Great Axe. Right, now look at the quantity. Yeah, so that we can do quantity buying. Boom, get 999 Dragon Scales. Now, I'm not sure if I would use the Dragon King Great Axe if I don't find any way to move swap. Like, if I don't find a thrusting sword, I'm not sure that I would use the Dragon King Great Axe, but I'm getting the chunks and the axe just in case. Like, it would cost me much more to come back here. Although I probably never would come back here if I ignored it here, but it does deal more damage than the Black Knight Halberd if we can find move swap. Except the pickup there in the corner may just have invalidated all of that decision because that was a Black Knight Greatsword. So again, if we can find Twinkling Titanite, that's probably the play. And then at this bonfire, I actually usually don't take this bonfire, but I have a Black Knight Halberd, and it is way, way better than anything else that I have right now. So it's definitely worth it to sit here and level up 22 strength, 18 dex, plus some other stats because I did not remember how many souls exactly I needed. So I got a bit too much. Unfortunately, the Black Knight Halberd is a relatively heavy weapon, especially in the early game. So I'm not gonna have it equipped by default because it will slow me down, causing me to mid-roll, which has a slower movement speed, in addition to the slower roll. So yeah, I got rid of the enemies there with the Uchigatana, which is fine for now, but I will switch to the Halberd to kill the Black Knight down here. And I should probably mention, so you might have noticed the settings at the start, but this is done in race mode, meaning that there's only specific spots that can have the key items that we're gonna need. Black Knights are one of those spots. This one, in fact, did drop a key, except it's not one that we really need. So we'll be killing Black Knights. We'll also be opening all of the chests, and then additionally taking all of the items that are normally embers, because not all of those are in chests, and all of the items that are normally keys, and then also all bosses that would normally drop a key or a boss soul are also possible key item locations. But that doesn't include all bosses. There are bosses that don't drop key items or boss souls. But this is an all bosses run, so we will be killing them eventually. They're just not a priority because they won't give us keys. You also just saw me killing the Crystal Lizard there in hopes of finding Twinkling Titanite. Because the Crystal Lizard's drops are like shuffled among themselves. So that will always be some upgrade materials. Unfortunately, there was no Twinkling Titanite in this one. So we are still looking for some kind of late game damage. Like the Black Knight Halberd +0 is pretty good already, but you know the +0 isn't really gonna cut it in the late game. We would like that to be +5 if we're gonna use it. And then equipping the halberd here despite the running speed because we would like to cut the tail. Oops, it lagged for a bit there. But we would like to cut the tail as I just did, and then just run out because you do not have time to pick up those items. I guess you technically can, but maybe not with mid-roll speed. So I'll just go back for him. It's much safer anyway to just run out and then go back for the items. Do an attack to get rid of the enemies, because they're really annoying otherwise. And then unequip the halberd so we can run faster again. Maybe I shouldn't be unequipping it here though, because there's a Black Knight right up here. I'm not sure if the running speed is worth the time that it takes to equip and unequip it, like for like this short of a section. And then we gotta make our way past the boar. And one thing that I'm not entirely sure about is I do like picking up this item over here. It looks like it's pretty fast, but actually if you skip it, you can kill this hollow soldier before he can drop the gate. So this is actually a relatively slow item to pick up. So I'm not sure if I should be doing that. Also the jumping attack there, if the hollow soldiers are grouped up against the fence, that just takes them all out immediately, which is really convenient. And actually an advantage of letting the hollow knock down the gate. But they weren't so cooperative this time, so we're gonna have to see if we can get past them here. And also watch out for the boar. Did not need that roll, but it's fine. And then we're just gonna make our way to the parish bonfire and also to Andre, who usually has a ton of stuff. And I'm gonna attempt a little trick on this bonfire to open the start menu at the same time as lighting it. I think it works here, yeah. And there's just a slight optimization, like it gives you additional downtime to do stuff with. And in this case, I looked at the quantity again of 999 in case I'm gonna want to quantity buy something. And there's a lot of stuff I want to buy here. Not necessarily quantity buy, but there is a Lord Vessel, a Power Within, and I also just bought a Mail Breaker. And this Lord Vessel is pretty expensive, so I'm gonna be prompt swapping into it. Which may actually have been a mistake, because I believe this also removes the Titanite chunk from his inventory. Although I didn't even pick up the Crystal Halberd in the first place, so I don't really have a use for Titanite chunks right now. And I did just pick up a Mail Breaker, meaning that the Dragon King Great Axe move swap is now on the table. I'm just looking at the upgrades here, and there is nothing I can upgrade. I just don't have the souls for the Dragon King Great Axe. I could pop some souls. Wait, why do I go back? What did I miss? Oh, I think yeah, right. Because I only have 15 green blossoms, because they were quite expensive. So I'm just gonna go back and buy more. Quantity buy more even. I did need to look at the quantity again, because buying anything will reset the quantity. I probably could have done that in a more optimal order in hindsight, but it's fine. And then don't forget to rest at the bonfire there, because it is slightly better for stamina to rest only when you go back, instead of lighting and resting the first time you get here. But of course, then if you forget to rest, you don't have the bonfire. Big Knight is in the way here, just being a bit annoying. He is a non-respawning enemy, so because I didn't quit out, he did not reset his position like normal enemies would. And here he continues being annoying as we go to pick up the next item. Here's another tiny mistake. I am ignoring the elevator. I actually should be activating the elevator here. Normally you don't want to, because after this gargoyle fight that's coming up, I'm gonna be boning back to Undead Parish, and after that I'm gonna want to get to Firelink, which normally I would do by running back here and taking the elevator, but I just bought the Lord Vessel, so I can just warp back to Firelink. I just kind of forgot that I have the Lord Vessel at this point, even though I literally just picked it up. So I also forgot that I'm gonna need to activate the elevator, because we need the elevator active in order to fight Stray Demon. So that's gonna bite me back later. This gargoyle is being a bit annoying, but I mean, this is gargoyles and I have a Black Knight Halberd, so they're not gonna be too much of a problem. Looking here through the inventory to see if I have anything that needs equipping. That's just a good habit to have in randomizers to check your inventory during downtime. Especially the weapons list, you want to keep the weapons list relatively clean. Uh, Especially so if you're going to be swapping around weapons like I'm expecting to be move swapping. So I'm going to want these weapons to be ordered nicely. And then before we bone back, we're going to take a look at what Oswald has. And then we just immediately spot Dragontooth Grasscrest Shield, and now we have a late game plan. This Dragon King Great Axe that I picked up just in case is not necessary at all. We're just gonna have a Dragontooth +5. And here I still don't remember that I have the Lord Vessel. I'm about to remember, I believe, and just turn back. Yeah, we're gonna warp to Firelink instead. But like I said, that will skip activating the elevator. We'll have to do that later. Except I don't realize it at this point. So yeah, we have a late game plan, but we don't have the souls yet to enact the late game plan. So I'm actually going to deviate here from what I would normally do. Normally I like doing Stray Demon and even Depths before going down to Blighttown. But that's usually because being able to rest at the Daughter of Chaos bonfire so that you don't have to go down to Blighttown again is like a huge time save. And you can only do that if you have the Lord Vessel. So I like taking the extra checks for an additional chance to find the Lord Vessel. But we already have the Lord Vessel, so there's no real reason to delay this. Now I could be getting a slightly faster Quelaag fight if I leveled up some souls in order to use the Dragontooth, or maybe even upgrade the Dragontooth. But the Black Knight Halberd is already pretty good at the Quelaag fight, even at +0, mostly because of its moveset. So I'm just gonna book it right here because the Quelaag fight will also let me ring the second bell, and that will summon Frampt. And then we can sell items to Frampt, which is very, very abusable in Prepare to Die edition, because we can combine it with quantity storage to just sell 999 copies of all of the boss souls that we have, which at this point is 2. Now a Dark Souls Remastered run of the same seed would already have significantly more souls than what we're gonna get from Frampt, but yeah, it is what it is. And at least we're not gonna be that far behind in terms of power once we get there. Oh, mess up the potting here. I also just picked up the orange shard ring, so now I do have the option to just immediately do all of Izalith. But even if you don't have the Lord Vessel, and that would allow you to skip having to come back here, probably at the cost of not taking a few checks. Even then it's not much of a time save at all because you're going to be running around a lot, mostly because of Ceaseless. So I'm going to decide to not do that and just come back here later. One nice thing that the Lord Vessel lets you do in this case is take this bonfire and just warp back to it after each of the checks. Maybe not after this one actually, because of course we're timing in real time and not in in-game time, so the loading screen does count. So I'm not sure how well this bone back compares to just running back. Maybe it's still slightly faster. But this next item that we're gonna get is a lot further away. And that will definitely... it definitely helps to have this bonfire in this case. Just one of the nice things that's possible when you have the Lord Vessel before you go down to Blighttown. I'm also not sure how many of these items I should still be picking up. Like, I have my late game plan. Ooh, there's Cast Light. We may need that, because there are a few checks. Well, at least one check that's going to be locked behind light. So as I was saying, I'm not sure if I should still be picking up items at this point. I have my late game plan. I will have the souls needed for my late game plan. And I have green blossoms already. So there's not that many things that could still improve my damage at this point. I could find divine blessings, that would be helpful. I could also find Elizabeth mushrooms, that would also be helpful. And I even have the grass crest shield. I'm not going to be using it much because it's a lot of menuing and a lot of remembering that I have it. But that's another potential hit that we already have that we can't find anymore. Um, oh yeah, I would maybe like to have a pyromancy flame because I have pyro within. And of course, homeward is always nice. Uh, yeah, if you can do homeward warp, then you can skip a lot of the Lord Souls, which also may or may not be necessary. But in the meantime, we've made it to Quelaag, who is just going to get stun locked by hitting her in the human part of the body. The Black Knight Halberd moveset is really, really good for it. So that's not a hard fight at all. If you know the timing on those attacks, you can't just spam the R1 button because that's not gonna work. Now normally you'd bone back here, but like I've mentioned a lot of times already, we have the Lord Vessel. So we're going to rest at the Daughter of Chaos bonfire here. And then just warp back to Firelink, where we're gonna do some quantity selling. You can also, I'm not doing it here, but you can also join the Covenant for another random item. But yeah, the Covenant animation is quite lengthy, and like I said, I'm not sure how many items I should still be picking up. So I believe at this point I'm just gonna stop picking up items that are not immediately immediately along the way. Now we gotta place the Lord Vessel first. There's no way to avoid that dialogue. But then we can get to selling. I'm actually a bit disappointed here to see that the Soul of Sif is only 4,000 souls. That's still like almost 4 million if we multiply it by 999. But I really thought it would be more. Especially considering that it consumes for 16,000. Now I know that's not uh, like there's zero correlation between how much a soul consumes for and how much a soul sells for. I was just expecting it to be a bit more. We still get a very respectable 15 million souls, I believe. 16 million, because we're also going to use this Firekeeper soul. Very respectable 16 million souls, and that will be more than enough to get all the levels that we need and then some. The decision to use the Firekeeper soul, though, is a bit interesting. But first, let's do the leveling. So we're leveling 66 strength, because we're always going to be two-handing our weapon. And when two-handing a weapon, it gets multiplied by 1.5, so this is effectively 99 strength. There's also 12 faith, 14 int, and 12 attunement, and then just max vitality, and 40 endurance for max stamina. And then I'm not sure what to do with these other few levels. And then the remaining souls we're gonna now use to upgrade the Dragon Tooth. The reason for the magic stats, 12 faith, 14 int, 12 attunement, is that 12 attunement gives you 2 attunement slots, which is needed for Homeward Warp. 12 faith is needed for Force, which is one of the ways to do Homeward Warp. And 14 int is needed for Cast Light, which if we can't find any way to spell swap, we're gonna need to just naturally cast Light in order to do the light checks. And this is where I noticed that where I'm about to notice that I forgot to send down the elevator. I believe I'm just gonna walk straight in there. It's like, oh, there's no elevator. Yeah. Um, so after just boning back away from Parish, I now have to warp back to Parish to go activate the elevator, which is definitely suboptimal to say the least. But I mean, the mistake was already made like 10 minutes ago or something. So now we're gonna make our way to Stray Demon, and I do actually like still killing Stray Demon in the at this point, mostly because I don't have the peculiar doll, which would let me into the painted world, and it's just really clean to be able to do the painted world at the same time that you do Anorlondo, and then never have to go back there again. So just for the possibility of that happening, I do like doing it here. They're not the fastest checks because Stray Demon himself isn't a check. So the only checks that are in the Undead Asylum are the Black Knight and the Peculiar Doll itself, the base location of the Peculiar Doll in the starting cell. But they don't take that long to get either, so I think this is usually still like a fine thing to do early. They're relatively fast checks, and it's not like we're gonna get that much better at killing Asylum Demon, at killing Stray Demon throughout the rest of this run. Like we have 66 strength and we have a Dragon Tooth +5 with move swap. Here on the wait for the nest, we're gonna drop all the weapons that we're not gonna be using anymore. And this is really the first major point in the run where you want to be doing some inventory management, just to get that weapon inventory clean. And also just the first point where you just have the time to do that. And Stray Demon here is gonna die pretty fast. This is the Stray Demon fight that Bluetooth runners wish they could have. Of course, in the current all bosses run, you fight this guy with a +0 Dragon Tooth, and it does significantly less damage. So there's no drop here. Stray Demon does drop an item on the ground, but that's a random item pickup. And at this point, I've basically decided I'm not taking random item pickups, especially because this one isn't exactly on the way. Like you do have to wait for Stray Demon to finish his death animation, which you could be halfway through the ladder by then. I do find the Twinkling Titanite here, but that's not very relevant anymore. But I suppose if we hadn't found this Dragon Tooth, I would now be able to use the Black Knight Greatsword, or even the Black Knight Halberd, because we do have ways to turn this one Twinkling Titanite into 10, or even more. And now I'm gonna also do depths for the same reason that I like doing Stray Demon. It's just more checks, except I don't have the depths key, so we're gonna have to do this little skip here, using the invalid weapon that we bought at the very start of the run. Let's just go out of bounds here. If I remember correctly, I'm gonna fail this a few times, so it will be back soon and I can explain more. But yeah, we can get out of bounds here, and from here we can get the depths, and we can also just get to Capra Demon without his AI activating. And we can also check this weapon, this merchant from above. I buy the Titanite shards here, because I do still have one weapon that I would like upgraded, and that's the bow. And then I also quantity buy these Divine Blessings, which retroactively justifies my decision to sell the Firekeeper Soul. I actually didn't finish that sentence then, but I chose to sell the Firekeeper Soul to Frown for another 1 million souls. But I could also just use it to upgrade my Estus, which I didn't do. just because it's relatively common to find divine blessings. Then I failed to quit out here, so you want to quit out as the copper demon dies. Oh god, I'm getting destroyed by this dog. Okay. And I pick up this item because why not? I mean, I've already said why not. I probably shouldn't be picking it up. And now we finally get the confirmation box dupe on the homeward bone. Thank you. So that we can go back and try to skip again. But yeah, you're supposed to quit out as the copper demon dies, so that the boss is registered as dead, but your stable position hasn't updated yet to be inside of the arena, meaning that you respawn wherever you were before you entered the arena, which in this case is the out of bounds position. Also, the collision here is garbage, so that is like it is not uncommon to bounce off of the wall like that in this position. So what we're trying to do here for the skip is we have the invalid weapon in the right hand, and then we need to block with the shield, and then immediately after the frame that the blocking animation ends, we need to parry, and that will put us in this weird state where, like you see there, we get this weird walking animation because all of our animations are halved in length or in speed. That gives you this weird walking animation and also halves the ladder climbing animation, which puts it at this 90-degree angle, allowing us to clip through and get out of bounds here. And then we jump to this ledge, which goes into a seam. So I'm slow walking here to make sure I don't fall off. And then we got to get to right above the doorway, right above the doorway that normally goes into the depths. And I actually miss it here and fall onto the roof of the depths. Now, if I was good at this game and knew more about this place, I would be able to save this. I believe there's actually a way to get inbounds from here, but I don't know how. So I'm just gonna bone back and try it again. It's really not that hard. Like, that's the easy part, is dropping off there, because the hallway is still pretty wide. I just was not paying attention and turned too late. So we're gonna get to see the glitch again. Poop walk is what this glitch is called, because of the way that it makes you walk. Why did I unequip the shield? That makes no sense. I do usually unequip the stuff needed for the... Yeah, I unequip the shield here. That doesn't really make much sense. I guess I'm about to move swap, and the Dragon Tooth is actually relatively heavy. We can just barely fast roll with the move swap Dragon Tooth if we have 40 endurance, which is part of the reason that 40 endurance is a breakpoint, in addition to being the hard cap on stamina. So I guess I'm going to not want to have it equipped later, and yeah, here I obviously don't need stamina because I'm slow walking. So I guess it makes sense that I would have unequipped the shield there. It's just a habit of me to unequip the stuff needed for the poop walk when I'm climbing the ladder. Then we can just run straight past these hollows, jump down here, plunge attack the butcher, and then just deal with the dog. If that plunging attack isn't gonna kill the butcher, then you probably shouldn't do it, because the plunge landing animation is pretty lengthy, and you're gonna be in trouble. Then here, do a jump. I have no idea how consistent this is, but you can make it so that you miss the plunge hitbox on the rat. Normally, when you jump onto the rat, you get this like plunge animation, like with Asylum Demon, but you can like miss the plunge hitbox, and that's just slightly faster. Also, I completely forgot here that Domhnall actually moves when you ring the second bell. So he's not here. I could have gone to him still because he is below the aqueduct, which we basically ran past. But I completely forgot, so now I'm just not going back. But this is one of the reasons that I usually do like doing depths before going down to Blighttown. It's because you then get to also check Dominal as a merchant. He's not gonna have that much stuff, because his inventory does expand whenever you kill specific bosses, and we haven't killed any of those yet. But he already has a reasonable amount, even just at the start of the game. And that was a very fast, or a very easy Gaping Dragon fight. I briefly debate, I believe here, going to Darkroot or maybe just to Andre. But I decide like no, I should just go straight for Sense Fortress. The early Darkroot in general is not that good. There's not a lot of checks, and you know if you don't even have the Crest of Artorias, it's going to take a long time to get through there. So if possible, you really want to wait until you have the Crest of Artorias to go there. This looks like terrible cycles. Surely you can do that better. Wait, you're supposed to pick up that chest. I have no idea why I ignored it. I probably just autopiloted past it, but that is potentially really, really bad. Like that chest is a check. That can have a key item. And if it does, then I now have no idea that I've missed a key item. Of course, you know, this run is getting uploaded, so you can probably guess that I didn't, that it doesn't matter. But I definitely should pay more attention there in the future because that might be really bad someday. Like if you're gonna be skipping any checks, that is not a check to skip. Like it is right there for the taking. Also, you can just run straight through here. Normally, in a regular speedrun, you wouldn't go for the chest upstairs behind Snake, and then you do have to like find some way to avoid the boulder. You can quit out, you can backstab it, you can even use like the block animation, your hitbox on blocking, to just barely make it squeeze past you. But in this case, because we went up to the chest behind the snake, the timing works out that you can just run through. And then we're gonna go behind this corner here because there's another check. And here in Sense Fortress, I believe I do this part differently from most other runners because I'm going to skip the bonfire here. I remember I timed this quite a while ago, and it's not actually faster, or at least not that much faster to take the bonfire, because it is quite a detour, and then you also have to light the bonfire and sit down at the bonfire, and it's not even on the way, so like you also have to then get back to the main path, and then of course in real time the loading screen also adds up. I guess the difference might even depend on your loading speed, honestly. Because like it really does feel like it should be faster because these checks that I'm taking are pretty long runbacks. But yeah, I typically just don't take it. And here we find what I believe is the first Lord Soul. We will eventually need 4 of those unless we can find a Homeward Wrong Warp. But like if I'm not picking up any items on the ground, honestly the odds are not very high that we're gonna find Homeward Wrong Warp at this point. I will still be checking out most merchants. I think that is still a relatively good deal. Like merchants have a lot of items. That's significantly more valuable than just one item pickup on the ground. Like this one would be pretty accessible, like would barely lose any time taking, but like it's just not very likely to be good. So even with like the low amount of time that it takes, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna take it. And here at the merchant, does he have anything good? Yeah, he has fire bombs and large titanite shards. Another bow, we don't need that. A symbol of avarice, some armor. And here, I believe I'm gonna check my inventory, yeah? Because I forgot if I have fire bombs or not, but I do. So I'm not gonna need his. I probably shouldn't even have scrolled through the armor. I suppose I like having heavy armor for Nito. But like with the amount of random stuff that you do still have to pick up, you usually don't really need to buy any armor. There's one exception to this, and that is fire resistant armor, specifically light fire resistant armor. But it doesn't apply in this case because you need that to do Isolith without the orange shard ring. Or well, you don't need it, but it helps a lot to have a bit of fire resistance. But of course, I do have the orange shard ring already. I even have it equipped right now because I just don't have anything better. So like equipping it here is just a way to not forget equipping it later. But yeah, you can actually do Isolith, or get through the lava part of Isolith even without the orange shard ring. And having fire resistance gear for that helps. So I do typically look out for that at merchants. But in this case, I have the ring, so I don't need it at all. Here in Iron Golem, I believe I'm going to make a slight strategy mistake because I'm gonna try to get him to fall down. But as you can see, the damage here is insane. So I probably should have just attacked him immediately, kill him in 3 running attacks. I'm not sure if it would have mattered because of the bomb cycle. I suppose you can always roll the fire. Like you can roll into the fire and then toggle to like skip part of the stagger animation. So you don't have to wait for the fire to disappear. So it probably would have been faster to just not go for the stagger and just hit him with 3 running attacks. Here another check behind the sentinels. This is the key to the seal apparently. I actually don't like seeing this because we don't have the Covenant of Artorias yet. And the key to the seal, of course, is the item that allows access to Lower New Londo. But we don't need it at all. If we only need to kill 4 kings, if that's the only reason to go to New Londo, then we can just seal skip. And there is no need for the key to the seal. Also, the whip is messing up my move swap here. I'm gonna have to make sure to fix the inventory there. But yeah, so this key to the seal is not typically needed. The only reason we would need the key to the seal is if there is an important key item in Lower New Londo. And there are a number of checks in there. I believe it's 3 chests that are supposed to be locked by the key. There's a few of those that you can still get with similar stuff to seal skip, but I don't actually know how to do that. And it doesn't even matter because I have the key to the seal for this run. But if you go there, like if you end up having to go to New Londo and you don't have the Covenant of Artorias, then you're gonna have to go back again in order to fight 4 kings. And so I don't like that that is now a possibility. I'm gonna attempt a jump here now, but I'm just not gonna jump apparently. But you can jump off of this off of the rafters to the left here to get onto the side area where there's a chest, which we do need. Well, we're probably gonna end up not needing the specific thing that's in here, but we do need to check it. Yeah, that's not a key that we need at all. I also failed the jump here. Like you can jump onto like the base of the statue and just run straight past the painting guardian. We knock this painting guardian out of the way. And then we're gonna make our way to the Darkmoon tomb. Is that a Gwendolyn Covenant ring that I have in my inventory actually? Did I just completely miss that? Or is that the other ring? Am I gonna look at the rings again? Apparently not. Yeah, apparently not. Regardless, you don't need the Darkmoon ring to fight Gwendolyn. Well, for one, you can just make Analondo dark, and then the wall will disappear. But you can also just quit out right in front of the wall, which I believe I'm about to do here. After I do some more menuing on this bonfire lighting animation. Yeah, if you jump off of this slab in front of it, you can land close enough to the wall to where the stand-up animation will actually make it disappear. And then we get to fight Gwendolyn early. And he is a check. He does normally drop the soul of Gwendolyn. So, and there's also 3 chests behind this boss fight. So this is 4 checks in total. And it is a pretty long run actually from the end of the boss fight to the chests. But they're relatively fast, especially because it's 3 in 1. So you do typically want to do this early. And you're just gonna kind of disappear when this dragon tooth hits him. I forgot if there's anything useful in those chests. This chest actually is normally empty in the base game, but it is a potential item location. And so modders and also the item rando can actually put stuff in this chest. Okay, there's nothing in those. So yeah, it's possible to put stuff in the chest that is normally empty. And the item randomizer will shuffle all of the items, which also means that the empty item in the empty chest will get placed somewhere else. So you can just randomly find an item pickup that doesn't, or randomly find what is normally an item pickup, like a corpse that's supposed to have an item on it, and it won't have an item in it. And it won't even glow. Like it will just be a corpse that very clearly is supposed to have an item on it, but it's gonna look like you've already picked up the item because there's no item to pick up. And just kind of funny when that happens. You can also find the empty chest just randomly somewhere else, but that's kind of unlikely because there's a lot of non-chest items. I also did a bit of a quit out there. You can get onto like the stable ground there before the elevator finishes moving, and then when you quit out, you can save your position on the stable ground, but the elevator position won't be saved because it hasn't finished moving yet. And this will be useful later to get a Priscilla, because otherwise we would have to pull the elevator back down. Not the elevator, it's a staircase. We'd have to pull the staircase back down in order to get to Priscilla, because we want to do that from the Dark Moon Tomb bonfire. It's not that much faster in real time though, because of the quit out. The quit out does add a bit of time to it, but I still like doing it. And this is why having the peculiar doll here is actually nice, because then you don't have to do that. You can just immediately go to Priscilla here and then run back. And you also just get a really smooth Anor Londo routing if you can do that. But unfortunately we didn't manage to find the peculiar doll before we went here, so we're just gonna have to come back for it later. I'm also going to completely ignore the bonfire on the left, like the room opposite to this one. Like, I have 99 vitality, I have divine blessings, I have a dragon tooth plus 5 with move swap. I am not really afraid of anything here, so there's just no point taking this bonfire. However, I do suck at this game, so maybe I should be taking the bonfire. But realistically, I'm not gonna fail this jump often enough to get in any kind of danger. I also suck at camera management, as you can clearly see. But it's fine, we'll make our way up here. And now, this is a really lengthy check to get, actually. I believe if you're trying to really optimize how fast you can go, you may want to just skip this one, because it's just one check right here next to this bed, one chest. You've got to get past these 5 silver knights, run all the way up here, and then find apparently 2 purging stones, which is completely useless. But I mean, it could have been a Covenant of Artorias or something. And then you got to do the same jump again, so you're basically in the same position that you started at. I didn't look at the timer, but this was definitely one of the lengthiest individual checks that you can take, and that we usually do take. Here we find the annex key. That is completely worthless. Even though there are checks in the annex, it's just faster to not take the usual entrance, even if you do have the key. So we're just going to completely ignore the existence of this key. And then the Havel equipment, or what is normally the Havel equipment. This is the reason that you want to come to Anor Londo relatively fast. Unfortunately, there's nothing in here, but like, these are 4 checks all right next to each other, and generally speaking, Anor Londo just has so much checks. Like, there's the 3 chests behind Gwyndolin, there's Gwyndolin himself. There's the 2 checks in this room over here. There's just so much stuff. It's not all the fastest stuff, but it is a lot of stuff. And then it's time to get to Ornstein and Smo. I'm just gonna heal up here, I think. Yeah, heal up before this fight. And I'm actually not gonna use a Green Blossom. Like, I have enough Green Blossoms, more than enough Green Blossoms for this run and 2 more runs if I wanted to. Except you can't really keep inventory between runs. But I still don't want to use Green Blossoms on this fight because of Super Smo. The goal here in this fight is to just perma stagger Smo with the running attacks. But if you have Green Blossoms, you actually regen too much stamina, and that will allow you to attack too soon. So like, it doesn't really save that much time to have the Green Blossom active, because you still have to delay your running attacks so that Smo staggers. Like, if you attack too soon, he will not stagger on the next attack, and then he can just destroy you. So you don't want that to happen, so I'm just not gonna give that a chance to happen. I'm just not gonna use the Green Blossoms. Then we kill Guinevere, which in this case I do have to do. But that's normally not required. Like, she does give you items, as you can see here, but these are not key items, because actually she doesn't always give you these items. This is supposed to be the Lord Vessel, and internally in the game, this gift is actually conditional on not having the Lord Vessel in your inventory. And what that means is that currently I don't have it in my inventory, right? I have it placed at the Firelink altar. But if I hadn't done that yet, I wouldn't get anything here. And so this gift is actually missable, and so the randomizer doesn't consider it a key item location. And it's Ornstein and Smo instead that are the key item location, which they already would be because they drop a boss soul. So if you don't need Dark Anor Londo, then you can just ignore Guinevere. Now usually you do need Dark Anor Londo. But there are, if you get the right key items, there is routing that you can do to where you don't need it. I also start upgrading the bow here at the blacksmith. I did completely forget that I have the weaponsmith box. I bought that from Petrus at the very start of the run. So I don't even have to be at the blacksmith to do this. But like, that is not something I realize right now. And then we're gonna just jump off here, because in Dark Anor Londo, when you die, you respawn at the first Anor Londo bonfire. And that's just a very nice teleport. And this is not the only reason though that we need Dark Anor Londo. But that will come back later. We will be back here eventually. Like, if this was the only reason that we needed Dark Anor Londo, it wouldn't make sense to do things this way, because you don't need to kill Guinevere, and it's actually a pretty lengthy detour to go there. Like, take the elevator up, wait for the door to open. That's gonna take much longer than just going to the bonfire. Like, I skipped the bonfire at the start of Anor Londo because I knew I would be coming back here this way. But if that's the only reason and the only time I'm gonna come back here, I should just be taking the bonfire. But we will be back there later. But first we're gonna make our way up to Archives. There is an argument to be made, actually, for not skipping the bonfire, and just taking it when you first enter Anor Londo and then immediately going for Archives. Because Archives has some of the fastest checks in the whole run. But realistically, I'm not gonna be able to skip checks in Anor Londo. Like, there's a lot of checks in Anor Londo, So it's generally good to go there, but they are pretty lengthy. Like, you know, the one chest that was up there in the triple silver knight room. It's a pretty lengthy check, and you don't want to skip it if you're there already. But realistically, going here before doing Anorlondo isn't gonna let me skip the Anorlondo checks, especially with the amount of keys that I still need. So I'm just gonna do things in this order. Maybe, maybe if I had more keys already, I would be inclined to try going here. But in the current situation, I don't think it makes sense. This check that I just took, actually, maybe you should skip this. It is a relatively lengthy check, especially for Duke's Archives standards. And also, we're gonna have to come back to Duke's Archives later anyway, because it's not really feasible to pick up all of the checks in one go. So we're gonna come back here later, and this check is positioned pretty well to take later. So you might just want to do that then instead of now. So we're gonna just Duke skip. Pretty easy skip. Not not much to talk about there. And then we gotta rotate the staircase because there's another chest up here. This is also another relatively lengthy check. It's basically the same idea as the previous one, just a chest at the end of this balcony. But this one is less skippable because this one is more out of the way on the second visit. So this one we pretty much will always pick up. And it also happens to be the Crest of Artorias. So definitely like that pickup because now Darkroot is much faster. Although there is one caveat to this, and that is that now we will never go to the Black Knight in Darkroot Basin. Uh, Normally, if you had to go to Darkroot without the crest, you would almost you would walk almost right past him, so he wouldn't be that far out of the way. But if we do have the crest, our routing is gonna change entirely for Darkroot, or our pathing to Darkroot is gonna change entirely, and we will not pass by him. So he basically becomes a singular check that just takes like a minute or even more than a minute to get to. So if he does have something that we need, it's gonna be a bit annoying. But I think that still shouldn't stop you from being really happy to see this Crest of Artorias pick up here and just doing the pathing that goes nowhere near the Black Knight. And then we get into the big room. There's 3 chests in here, and then there's 1 chest down these stairs. Unfortunately, they don't seem to be very good this time around. Usually there's at least something to find in here. I guess we did find the Crest of Artorias above. So we did get something good from here. But the chests down here are not very exciting, to say the least. And then we're gonna make our way to Seath. And at this point, this is a relatively lengthy run. Like, we do have to do it. Obviously, Seath is a boss, he has to die. But this is a bit of time now to think about where am I going next? Like, what's the strategy now for basically the second half of this run? And this is where it gets a little bit less straightforward. Like, the early game is pretty clear to me what to do. But now we have a lot of options for places to go, and they're gonna take different amounts of time and have different amounts of checks in them. But usually the first priority is finding the DLC key. I'm not actually sure how much we should prioritize this, especially in uh in this run, because right now I am missing only the DLC key and then 2 additional hard requirements, which are the Peculiar Doll and the Covenant of Artorias. And so the question is, well, how good is the DLC really? And I don't actually know. There's a lot of stuff in the DLC, and there's also 4 bosses in the DLC, which are just free checks because we have to take them anyway. But how good are the checks there really is is a question that you can ask yourself, and I'm not actually sure about that. But we're gonna have to finish the decision making there because Seed just died, and so now we've got to make a decision about what to do. I did get a bit unlucky because like there's so many checks here in this first visit to Duke's Archives. 1/3 of the time almost the DLC key is going to be in here, but it wasn't. So I decided to go to the second place that has bosses and the ability um, to have the DLC key, which is Lost Izalith. Because the DLC key can only spawn, it is hard coded to only be able to spawn in places that are locked behind the Lord Vessel, so behind Golden Fog Gates. The Four Kings and Lower New Londo is not considered to be locked by the Lord Vessel because you can just kill Ingrid for the key normally. So there's only 3 places really that can have the DLC key, and they are Lost Izalith, Duke's Archives, and Nito. And that's only Nito in the third case because only Nito is the only check that's behind the Golden Fog Gate. The other checks in Tomb of the Giants are not behind the Golden Fog Gate. And Izalith, so of course we do still have checks in Duke's Archives that we skipped. One of them being the actual vanilla DLC key location, the Crystal Golem. But he's not gonna drop the key. Well, he's not gonna drop anything, I should say, because we haven't freed Dusk yet. The Golem only drops the key and in randomizer anything when Dusk is freed. So I kind of don't want to go to Duke's Archives. I don't want to go back to Duke's Archives before I've done that, because the Golem might have something useful, and that means that if I skip him, if I go there now, I will have to skip him again, and then that means that I might have to go again, like a third time, to actually get his drop. And that's why I'm deciding here to just go to Izalith. Ceaseless is of course not a check, but he is a boss, and while we're here, we might as well kill him. We're about to just get into Izalith in a second here, doing this prepare to die edition only trick where we repeatedly quit out in this particular position at the edge of this elevator, because we are currently in the demon in Quelaag's domain, but this elevator is actually considered part of the Demon Ruins map below us. And that means that it loads slower than the rest of the area around us. And then the stand-up animation has a bit of a pushback to it, and this pushback will eventually push us into the hole left behind by the non-existing elevator. And that will let us fall through. I think right here is where it works, yeah. This was a pretty lengthy skip though. I started a bit too late, a bit too far away. But that will let us fall through and plunge attack this Fire Sage Demon Fire Sage, who is conveniently right below the hole. And here I start walking towards the check that is on the other side here. There's a chest with an ember behind behind a lot of rock worms. But I decide no, I'm not gonna go for that. And even if I did want to go for that, I would want to go here anyway to take this bonfire, so that I can warp back from that check. Like I said, it's not always faster to take bonfires, but in this case I'm pretty sure it is. So I would want to do that. But I'm not even going to take the bonfire, because I'm pretty confident that I can make my way through here without dying. And like, I have the elevator unlocked now that I've killed Demon Fire Sage, so if I have to come back here for a check, then I can do that. And now we're fighting Centipede Demon, and since we already have the orange chartering, we can just walk straight through the lava, and the fight isn't very hard with this much damage. Now, one major drawback to coming to Lost Isolith early is that we will have to take all the checks in here. Like, you can't reasonably skip anything in here because it's gonna take really, really long to get back, to go back to here, if we end up needing some. And this first check in this building that we're about to take, that's not too bad. Well, it's not bad at all, really. You just, like, it basically almost takes no time at all. But once we get out of the lava area, there's the one check, the chest that has a red slab in it. That one is going to be a very lengthy process. And that's actually a very good reason to not want to do Isolith at all. Because if you're here, realistically, you should go pick up the red slab check. But it takes so long. You could, of course, decide to skip it. Like, if you were really pushing for time, at some point you're gonna have to take risks. You're gonna have to accept that, like, some of these checks are just too long to check, and you're gonna have to accept that if it's in there, well, then we just lose the run, right? Like you can't really expect to push the time really far if you're always gonna take all the checks. But right now, in this run, I'm really just trying to do runs and get runs finished. So, like, I am going to take the checks that I can't go back to easily, and this is one of them. So you get into the back here, and then there's this side room where we have to roll through another poison swamp. And then, oh yay, a Dragon Slayer Great Bow and a Crown of the Great Lord. I am so happy I came here. And that's gonna happen relatively often. Honestly, individual checks are just not very likely to have good things in them. But like I said, if I don't want to risk it, then I do have to come here. And then we're making our way back up here. There is now one more check that is not the Bed of Chaos itself. And it's gonna be basically right around the corner when we get to the top. Normally I want to be move swapped here so that I can get rid of this Pyromancer here. But running past her is fine. This Chaos Eater is actually more of a problem typically than the Pyromancer is because he's just so big. And that's a Lord Soul Shard. So, knowing that this is a Lord Soul Shard, I was never gonna be able to avoid coming here. Like, I was always going to miss at least something at the point where I have to decide to go take the red slab check or not. So realistically, in this seed, I'm always going to take the red slab check. That's a bit unfortunate with how the items are distributed. But at least I know that it's not a complete waste to come here at this point. Oh, I didn't use the green blossom at all. Okay, so I selected the green blossom there. Normally, if you have blossoms, you want to stop your movement with the use of a green blossom, and then you have extra stamina regen for rolling through these branches. But I just completely forgot to use it apparently. And now note that we still do not have a DLC key. We have not found the broken pendant. So now we have two more options. One of those is the second part of Duke's Archives, and another one is to go to Catacombs and fight Nito. Now Archives at this point has 4 checks, and Nito is 1 check. So, you know, my bet is on Archives. But before we go to Archives, like I said before, I want to have done Darkroot because I do not want to skip the Crystal Golem a second time. So I'm gonna make my way to Darkroot. I stopped by Andre there to upgrade my bow because the Moonlight Butterfly is a lot better when you can shoot her, and shoot her with arrows specifically. You can also throw bombs at her, but the bow, especially at plus 10, is gonna deal more damage, even though I only have like 18 dexterity. This bow is going to do more damage than black fire bombs, and it's also just faster. Like it shoots faster. So it's more damage per projectile, and the projectiles come out faster. I'm not sure what the time comparison is like. Like how much time do you save shooting her with the bow versus how much time do you lose upgrading the weapon, upgrading the bow. Like I'm not entirely sure, but I mean until someone times it, I'm just gonna keep doing it this way. I actually, yeah, I'm looking at the level up screen here, trying to see if I can maybe get a little bit more points of dexterity. But I mean, if you already spent like 15 million souls on leveling, your levels are going to be pretty expensive, so I don't actually have enough souls here. So then we're going to make our way to Butterfly, and I'm actually trying overall for this Dark Route strategy. I'm actually trying to do like a semi all bosses kind of routing, where I'm going to do all of Dark Route, and then I'm going to warp to Duke's Archives, do all of Duke's Archives, hopefully get the DLC key, uh, and then bone back into the Darkwood bonfire so that I can immediately go to the DLC. That does rely on finding the DLC key in Duke's, which no, I do have an 80% chance at. So yeah, that's where my bet is, and that's what I'm doing. And Butterfly just kind of died because this bow does a good amount of damage. Unfortunately, there's nothing useful. Well, the Mask of the Mother is kind of useful sometimes, just a bit of extra health. But there's nothing really required behind Butterfly. We did, of course, have to check the items because we do still need the Covenant of Artorias and the Peculiar Doll. And those are hard requirements. There is no way, absolutely no way to skip those. At least not that we currently know of. And I'm gonna also try to like slightly optimize the pathing through Darkwood here for a real time kind of timing. So there's another chest to the right of where I just was, in a little pool guarded by the big mushrooms. But after doing Sif, I'm gonna have to go to Hydra, and I believe at least if Sif ends up close to the entrance of his arena, then I'm pretty sure that you don't actually want to bone out, and you just want to instead run from the Sif arena to the Hydra. I haven't actually timed this though, so maybe you just always want to bone out. But if you're gonna run like that, then you also want to pick up the the chest in the water on the way back there, and then you get to run a slightly more straight line. Oh, this is a terrible Sif fight. Please ignore my horrible gameplay. But yeah, you get to run a slightly more straight line from the chest that is normally the stone armor to Sif. And here we're relatively close to the fog gate. It's not that close, but like it does depend on what Sif does. Like I am pretty sure that if he is literally at the other side of the arena, you would be better off boning back. Except in this case, I've already made the decision that I'm not going to do that by skipping the check, the chest up here, when I came here. And I'm not sure how this works out on average. Also, we can just tank this punch because we have so much health. Otherwise, I probably would be doing a quit out as I'm opening the chest. Uh, that just resets them by just enough that you can pick up the item and then run away to avoid getting hit. But with max vitality, there's like really no reason to worry. And then we get to the Hydra fight. This fight can be optimized really hard, but I kind of just wing it. Like I do have a Dragon Tooth here, so like I could, I could be trying to do the all bosses threats where they also have a Dragon Tooth at this point. But in all bosses they also have a red Tearstone ring active, and I currently don't. I don't even have a red Tearstone ring, so I'm not sure how well that would work. But having to kill 3 heads is like fine. I was trying to shave off some hits with the bomb throws, but I just didn't quite deal enough damage. I might have missed some bombs too. And then we gotta kill the Crystal Golem. And then talk to Dusk. Oh no. Yeah. Goodbye. And now we go to Duke's Archives in hopes of finding the broken pendant, because now the Crystal Golem in Archives will actually drop whatever he's supposed to drop. And then we gotta rotate the staircase because the chest that we need from here is on the balcony on the other side. And that is unfortunately not very useful. And then we need the Avalanche chest, which is on top of the bookcase down there. So we're gonna do a bit of a trick here. The opposite kind of trick actually that we did with the staircase in Anor Londo. We're gonna rotate this thing, and then we're gonna quit out after it has rotated, but without walking off of it. So now our position is saved on the other side, where there is now no staircase in the way, and we can just drop down into the bookcase. There's also a trick that you can do here. Oh yeah, roll away from these arrows. You can just barely do that. There's also a trick that you can do where you can jump onto the railing of the staircase, and then you don't have to move it or even quit out. And that's faster, but it's also a lot harder to do. And we did just pick up the Peculiar Doll, as I was talking about that. So now we only need one more item, and it's the Covenant of Artorias. And now you can really start thinking like, where am I most likely, or like, where do I on average find the Covenant the fastest? And here I'm actually just gonna continue my plan of finding the DLC key, but I'm not actually sure that that's what I'm supposed to be doing here. Get rid of this guy because we need to go up here. Another really lengthy individual check that, well, it's not technically an individual check, like it's part of this section, but yeah, even if you're doing this section, you might just want to ignore it because it is pretty lengthy. However, I believe in this case, yep, there's a Lord Soul. We did need to come up here. So very good thing that I did that. Like, you might just want to ignore it because it just takes so long. And that was something that we needed, but it was not the DLC key. So that means that there is only one more place where the DLC key can be, and it's at Nito. Uh, we did pick up the peculiar doll in a place which is behind the Golden Fog Gate. So technically, everything in the painted world is also now behind the Golden Fog Gate, behind the Lord Vessel. But I don't think that the randomizer will put the DLC key in like secondary locks like this. I believe it's hard coded to just place it in the places that are always locked behind the Lord Vessel. But it's been a while since I looked at the randomizer code. It's available. You can just look at it on GitHub. You can just Google for that. But I believe it's just hard coded to go there. If it is not, then this might actually be the wrong play. Because there's only one check in here. I believe also that Lord Soul that we picked up there was the fourth one. So now really the only thing that we need is the DLC key. Oh no, and the Covenant. We need the DLC key and the Covenant still. But like if there's now an additional like 4 checks that are in the painted world, that could be the DLC key. That's probably the way to go. Because even though we are gonna, oops, you can get trolled by that skeleton if you take this clothing. Like, we are gonna pick up plenty of checks in here, but they're all gonna be relatively slow, and they're also not gonna be the DLC key, except for Nito himself. So probably, if in this situation the DLC key can be in the painted world, you probably should be going there instead. But this is what I chose to do. Pick up the Rite of Kindling here, not exactly something that I was looking for. And then you might notice I didn't take the bonfire. Part of this is because I want to do the same thing that I was going to do before. I want to do this whole section without bonfires, so that I can just bone back after killing Nito and end up back at Darkroot. Because the Darkroot bonfire is not warpable. So if I take any bonfire here, then if I want to get back to Darkroot, I have to walk all the way back there. Now that might not be such a bad thing, because I do still need the Covenant of Artorias, and it could technically be at the Black Knight in Darkwood Basin, which, if you're going from the Darkwood bonfire having the Crest of Artorias, you're going to completely skip the Black Knight. But if you have to go from the Undead Parish bonfire, you would be going past the Black Knight. So like that's definitely a consideration to make. But I don't think I thought about that when I was doing this. I also just generally don't take the bonfire even if I do. Even if I can, even if I'm not trying to like bone back to a specific place. Because for the like it's only faster on like one of the bone backs, I believe. Because the run back from like the coffin, what is normally the Dark Moon Seance ring, the run back from there is actually not that bad. And neither really is the run back from or the run through the bone wheels from the Black Knight. And now because I am trying to do this without bonfires, I do have to, well, do this without the bonfire. So I'm gonna try my best not to die here. But I have a big weapon, so I can like bait the first few to the ladder, and then I drop down on them, and then we're just gonna frantically run and roll around trying to kill these things in the dark. There's another one, and then that one I think I'm just gonna ignore because he's the only one left. Find the depths key here. We did already go to the depths. In a different world, if I did some different routing, I might have been able to skip this, and then it would have absolutely been the correct play to do depths when I did it. I don't think we found anything important in the depths. We did find divine blessings though. We found divine blessings at the female merchant, and I probably wouldn't have gone to the merchant if I did depths normally. Here we can do a little bit of a skip. That's actually kind of scuffed, but it worked. And then turn around real quick because there's a black knight here, and that is of course a check. And then he gives us a rapier, but we already have a mail breaker. That is not something that we were looking for. Oh, you don't want to roll off here, by the way. I'm just so used to doing that, but it's really, really dangerous. The roll can like accidentally give you a bit of extra distance when you roll off the edge, uh, or like if you're rolling more towards the right, trying to not fall off the edge. You can actually get pushed by the wall and gain some momentum towards the left, and that can be enough to still make you fall off. At least I believe that's what's happening there. I've seen plenty of people fall off there. I should really, really stop rolling there. Like it barely even saves time over just running off. Then we're gonna make our way to Nito. I have no idea actually how much heavy armor I have at this point. Put on the Mask of the Mother for some health. Oh, Havels is good. Ornstein's leggings are also good. That's probably decent. And like I have a ton of health, so it's not really as much about the armor as it is about the poise. Like I want to be able to just whack Nito with his dragon tooth without constantly getting staggered by the skeletons. And the whacking seems to be going perfectly fine so far. I can just completely ignore this scream. Like even if I don't get a running attack off in time, like I'm still at full health, it's not gonna do anything. They're gonna stagger me and then we go again. No surprise, we find the broken pendant here and I am now back at Darkroot. Mission successful. We can go into the DLC. But I should be wondering here, is it actually the correct play to go to the DLC? I think at the very least, it's going to be the correct play to enter the DLC and kill Guardian. And then I probably want to be resting at the Sanctuary bonfire anyway, just for safety. Like there's no... Yeah, safety is the only reason to rest there. But I mean, at this point in the run, that's a pretty good reason. Because if I were to die further up in the DLC, I would go all the way back to this bonfire. In Darkroot, I have to make this whole run again. I've done that before, it's not fun. Do check my inventory here to see that I have 4 Lord Souls. And at this point, I know that I am only missing the Covenant of Artorias. But I don't think I'm really thinking about the routing at this point. I think what I'm thinking is I will just do the DLC and we'll see what happens then. But I probably should be thinking about the routing because this is only one key item. It could be literally anywhere. So then the question is, where am I going to find it the fastest on average? Now the DLC does have a lot of bosses, and it's probably a good idea to at least go up to Artorias. And you want to take the bonfire after Artorias regardless. But then what? Because the checks on the way to Manus are not that fast. There is a decent number of them, but they're not that fast. And we get a nice cooperating Sanctuary Guardian here. Even get some instability damage. Otherwise I wouldn't have killed, I'm pretty sure. Like you can just barely see that he started a jump back or a sidestep, which gave him instability frames. So I'm taking this bonfire for safety. Why is there a... Oh yeah, I was trying to equip the catalyst actually. No, that's not true. I'm trying to equip literally anything in that slot, which I'm going to need later, or like immediately actually. And I tuned cast light there because, well, if I'm gonna be doing the DLC, I need a light source, and I don't have a sunlight maggot, and I don't have a skull lantern right now, so I do need this spell. This squid out here, that's why I needed to equip that that thing in the left hand. It could have also been in the second right hand slot, but this is an AFK setup, so these enemies are just not going to react to me until I stop doing this in order to pick up this check. I did mess up the timing a little bit. I probably should have quit out earlier and done like one more AFK, because they're only AFK for 5 seconds. So like I probably should have started another 5 seconds of enemy AFK, but it's fine. I managed to get the chest. Like normally that is such a pain to get that chest, because those are really annoying enemies. But the AFK makes it a little better. And then we're gonna go down here, do an early Calamity trigger. Here's another one that I'm not entirely sure about. Like the early Calamity trigger is probably fine, but I'm not just gonna do an early Calamity trigger. I'm also going to run into the arena and actually grab the chest that's behind the waterfall there, the one that normally has the Titanite slab. And that does take a bit of time, especially because we have to include the quid out that I'm then doing to spawn back up here in order to not die to Calamite's fire. Like this is definitely not the fastest check in the game. It's not that slow either. But I'm now that I'm doing this commentary and hindsighting myself into oblivion, I'm really wondering like how fast is this really? I actually switched to the homeward bones here on the hotbar, and I realized that no, I need to quit out. I am not going back to the bonfire. I need to go to Artorias, who is also not going to be much of a struggle, by the way. And part of the issue that I have here in deciding where to go is that there hasn't been a lot of timing done regarding how long it takes to do all of these checks in like these late game places. I've been doing a bit of timing, but mostly so far I've only done the early game, so I really just have no idea of where to go or like what would be the best place to go. Like I said, Artillery is not going to be too much of an issue. He drops the Dusk Crown Ring, which would be very interesting if I had a Red Tearstone Ring as well to pair it with. Because that is the one downside of having 99 Vitality, is that if you want to do some RTSR setups, well, you're gonna need fall damage basically. You're not gonna get RTSR setups with just getting hit. And even with fall damage, it's more convenient to do that with the Dusk Crown Ring in some places. But I don't have RTSR, so this ring is kind of useless to me. Then we equip the catalyst there in the offhand so that we can cast light soon. It doesn't really matter when you go to Goth, but since I have the quest key, and because there's this ladder in front of Goth that I can use to equip stuff, I figured I should do it now, because I do need this catalyst equipped for this next section, because this is where the light checks are. There was probably very likely a more optimal way to do all of these equipment and a more optimal time to do all of these equipments. But that would have required me to plan ahead much further, and I was not exactly doing that. But we do need the move swap here to get rid of these enemies. Ow. Oh no. Okay, it dies. I do remember that I didn't die here, but this is not how you want that to go. And then right here is the first light check. And apparently you can't use items immediately after casting a spell. So I get a bit of a shrug animation there when I wanted to heal up. So I'm just gonna do that here instead. After doing this move swap, yes. After actually doing the move swap. Okay, and then we're gonna get rid of these enemies. Like you can run past these if you want to, but the enemy on the walkway especially takes up almost all of the space, and this is really tight to get past him. And it's just not very consistent, at least in my experience. So now we're gonna make our way up here where there is the second light check, and this cast light lasts pretty long, so we can just keep this cast light until we get to the door, and you can even keep the cast light for the second time around when you fail this jump, and you go all the way back up, which now takes longer because there's bloatheads in the way, but it will still be up when we get up there the second time. And the second time I am not going to try the skip again. But yeah, you can, I just jumped a little bit too early, but you can jump off of those planks and then run across the scaffolding to make it to this chest over here. And then of course you run all the way back and do the reverse jump again to get back. And like that jump is also just faster if you have the light, even because you can skip waiting for the the door to disappear or the wall to disappear. And it's not that hard of a jump, but it's also pretty easy to miss. Then we're gonna make our way across the bridge. I probably should be activating the elevator behind me, because this is a pretty scary bridge. I do have a lot of health, but that doesn't mean much in the DLC, as you can see. Get a bit lucky here that the sorceresses aren't casting any spells, or any scary spells anyway. So we do make it, but I probably should activate that elevator more often. I try to skip that way too often. And then we're gonna wait for this elevator to come up. I'm pretty sure this is slightly faster in real time than waiting than quitting out, because of the loading screen, right? And the additional real time that adds. And the chained prisoner that's behind you there is just not a problem usually, especially if you manage to juke him like I did there. He's just not that fast. Then these humanities are a bit in the way, but that's fine. They don't deal that much damage. And we're gonna get rid of this sorceress here. Just go to the wall and she will drop down, and then you need to not miss, of course. There we go. If you don't kill that sorceress, she will blast you in the ass when you're running down here. Or she can at least, and very often she will. If you have like stealth, like hidden body or something, then you can actually just make it through there and she just won't see you. But we do not have any of that. So yeah, we killed it there. And now we're fighting Manus, who I am not the best at. Okay, I'm not an all bosses runner, so I basically only come here in the DLC whenever I do item rando. But we have decent damage, so he'll just die eventually. Get lucky here on this attack, this magic attack. We can finish him here. And still no Covenant of Artorias. And so now while running towards Calamite, I really should be thinking, where do I go next? Because, well, Calamite is one more check. That could be the Covenant of Artorias, and if it is, I'm going to immediately just rush the bosses that I have left. But if it is not, I need to have a plan. Right? And I can use this time to run towards Artorias to think of a plan, like what am I going to do if this is not the Covenant? And I basically have two options. Like there's I believe 12 checks after Calamite that I haven't checked yet. 4 of those are in New Londo. And I guess there's a 5th one there and a 13th check at Four Kings themselves, but I mean that the Covenant can't be there. Then there's 4 checks in the Painted World, and there's 4 other checks across the world that I have to go to one by one that I either skipped or forgot about, like the one in Incense Fortress. So those last 4 are not an option, and I'm gonna have to go to either New Londo or Painted World. And you'll see what I choose to do soon enough, because first there's a Calamite fight. Once again, I do not, like I'm not an all bosses runner, and Calamite is an even more annoying fight than Manus, so I just do not know how to fight this boss. I'm kind of just hoping that he walks into his hitbox, and he walks into my hitbox, and I don't walk into his. Like there. But I do have pretty good damage here, so he will die eventually. Managed to not walk into the hitbox, and so did he. Should have rolled that there, and then he does die. And he drops Armor of the Sun. How amazing. Well, that's not a Covenant of Artorias. So we're gonna have to go somewhere, and the decision for me here is to go to the Painted World. And I'm not actually not entirely sure about this, but the reasoning is, if I go to New Londo and I do not find the Covenant of Artorias in New Londo, then I will have to go back down there again. So I am going to go to the place that I am going to take the checks that I can reasonably get with not too much time before I go to New Londo. And so I'm not going to be doing the 4 individual checks that I've skipped. One, because I actually don't remember. Well, I do remember the 3 that I know that I've skipped, but I have no idea at this point that I've skipped the check in Incense. But you know, this is a video that gets uploaded to YouTube. You can probably guess that it's not going to be in there, but that would be devastating to this run if it was. So like, I'm not even going to get all of those checks because I don't know about all of them. But two, they're also just really, really long. Like, those are individual checks. I have to warp to the closest bonfire and then run all the way to the check and then bone back and then warp to the closest bonfire and then run all the way to the check. And I would have to do that 4 times at worst. And all for 4 individual checks. So I don't think that's reasonable. And I mean, I can think about which ones are the fastest to get if I end up not finding the Covenant either here or in New Londo. But I'm gonna go to this place first, because then I potentially don't have to go to New Londo twice. But like, maybe that's not actually the play on average. I really don't know. Because ultimately there is still a 1 in 3 chance that the Covenant is not here nor in New Londo. So like, I really don't know. And it's looking pretty bad because this is also not the Covenant of Artorias. But I mean, you can't not take all the checks in here. And these checks are not that bad to get, honestly. I will be doing here, so like I said earlier, we do have the annex key, but it's just faster to not use the annex key. Although this is the slower version of the skip. So you can jump onto that corner there and then quit out, and that will spawn you back onto the corner. And then from here you can roll onto the annex. This is the slower version of the skip though. You can also go to the walkway, go a bit back, and from the walkway you can jump and plunge the place. Aha! There's a Covenant. So now we're very happy that we came here. But as I was saying, there's a faster version of the annex key skip essentially where you don't have to do a quit out. But I'm pretty bad at that one, so I'll just do the easy one. And now I have all the items. I'm looking at the timer, and I'm feeling pretty good about getting a sub 2 hour run. And then I miss the invisible collision. Amazing. And now I'm feeling a bit less good about the sub 2 hour run. But I do have all the items. I can just rush the bosses. And like 8 minutes to kill 3 bosses. I mean, Gwyn takes 2 minutes. And then the other bosses can take 3 minutes each. That's like reasonable. Certainly not impossible to do. And I mean, you can see the time on the video below. I've purposefully not said how long it was and didn't even put it in the thumbnail. But you can see the time on the video below. You can make an educated guess about how fast it's gonna be. We'll just do our best here. Try to hit the invisible collision this time. Yeah, okay. That roll there is actually very risky. You really just want to be toggling that landing, or even just not canceling the hard fall at all. Because if you roll a little bit too far sideways, then you're just gonna roll across the invisible wall there and still fall off. But I didn't want to toggle because I don't want to break this move swap. And hard falling just feels so bad. But really, I shouldn't have rolled there. That was really risky. Now once again, I'm not an all bosses runner, so I have no idea how to read Priscilla spawns. I know a little bit about it. But essentially there's a trick that you can do there with the lock-on. And then you can see where the lock-on jumps to when she teleports, and that will let you know where she is. And here's the second time, I mentioned this earlier, here's the second time that we are in the Honor Londo bonfire. And this is the main reason that we killed Guinevere earlier. Because after you exit the Painted World, your last bonfire automatically gets set to the Honor Londo bonfire. And like, we're not going to run anywhere after the Painted World. Especially if you don't have the doll yet the first time you go to Honor Londo. Like, realistically, the next time you go to the Painted World, you're gonna want to bone back immediately. And that means you're gonna end up at the Honor Londo bonfire. Now, if Honor Londo is not dark, and Gwendolyn is dead, then the Firekeeper is aggroed. And that means you can't use the bonfire, right? Because you're going to be in combat. And if you exit combat by killing the Firekeeper, well, then you disable the bonfire. So we had to kill Guinevere in order to allow this warp that we did there away from Anorlondo, instead of having to run away from the bonfire into probably into the Darkmoon Tomb, uh, which would be pretty lengthy. And then combine that with the ability to skip the bonfire at the start of the well at the start of the first Anorlondo segment. I'm pretty sure this is worth it overall. I'm not entirely sure though. And now you're seeing me do seal skip. It's a bit slow because I haven't done it in a while. Very often in rando, you do end up needing the items or end up wanting at least to check the items in Yolando. But in this case, I was able to avoid it. I do have the ring equipped already, so no memes where I accidentally forget to equip the ring. And then we're gonna go fight for kings. Now, if I can get 2 kings, I'm feeling pretty good about this. But if you looked at this health bar, that first running attack actually did more than half of his health in damage. Which is why I did some rolling attacks there. But now you can see we just barely don't have more than half the health bar dead. So if we do this again on the second king, we're not going to get 2 kings. So either I have to accept 3 kings, or I now have to come up with something on the fly in order to deal a little bit more damage to the second king. So I guess we'll just open with another running attack. And then I actually miss here the second running attack. And now I'm like, but really, is the second running attack gonna kill? Yes, it is. And now I'm screwed. So we're doing 3 kings. Maybe, like the difference in damage between a running attack and a rolling attack isn't that big here. So it probably wouldn't have made a difference if I did a rolling attack there. If I did that twice on both kings, maybe. I don't actually know the setup here. Like, it's pretty hard generally in rando to like improvise a setup, like unless you really know the weapon and the stats that you're using. Usually you're probably just gonna get the 3 kings. But the third king does die, and now we have a bit less than 3 minutes to get our ass to Gwyn and link this fire. And usually that works out. You know, Gwyn takes about 2 minutes to kill. Or to get to and then kill. And at this point there's not many, there's not a lot of stuff happening anymore. We have all the stuff, we're going to fight the last boss. We just gotta make our way through the kiln. And this is some pretty standard pathing. I'm probably not pathing exactly optimally here, but it's at least gonna be decent. Especially in like the initial section of the kiln, I'm very unsure about. I really should know what optimal pathing is. But I just don't. Here though, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, because we're gonna just barely get past this guy. Make sure to not turn too far back into him, because then you get hit by that attack. And also it's just slower because you want to go straight. Like you have to turn to the right after this bridge anyway. So going left makes 0 sense. And then left of the previous guy, right of this guy. And then we get to Gwyn. Don't even have to move swap anymore because we kept it from the 4 kings. And now we've got 50 seconds. And, you know, the Gwyn fight doesn't take 50 seconds, but his death animation is pretty long. However, I will let him play out the death animation because I am not gonna go for the parry shenanigans. I'm just not gonna give him a chance to mess up this run. And then we're just waiting for the bonfire to appear. Boom. Skip the cutscene. Boom. And that's a sub 2 hour run. With a ton of mistakes actually. And the seed wasn't even that good with the key items.